So I said, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm a business development specialist for SANYO Denki America and SANYO Denki. And for today, I want to keep it kind of short and sweet for the group. I always like to say that when it comes to CODESYS, SANYO Denki, we're kind of one of the better kept secrets. I don't think a lot of people know about us. So kind of want to introduce our company a bit, kind of talk about why we use CODESYS. And I got a couple of fun examples that we're at our trade show at Automate that we can actually carry forward to like real life applications. Way I'm going to set up the talk today is the first point. I'm going to do a little bit about who are we, who is Sanyo Denki, what do we do. From there, I'm going to say what was our challenge when it comes to motion control, and specifically, how do we program the motion control and how do we keep it easy for engineering teams. From there, I'm going to walk it into why do we choose CodeAssist. And then the last two are going to be two examples we had from the Automate trade show because we were actually next door neighbors with CodeAssist this year up in Detroit. And these are some really interesting demos that really make the our motion control shine along with the CodeAssist product. So I'd like to talk about those two applications. And certainly, I'm not going to go horrendously into detail on the applications, but welcome any and all questions that anybody would have on it. Okay, I'm going to start off a little bit about who Sanyo Denki is. We're a global manufacturer. We actually have three divisions to us. We manufacture motion control, which is what I'm going to talk about today in the division that I work for. We do cooling fans, and we also do uninterruptible power supplies. And the one thing that Sanyo Denki always focuses on is that we take care of all stakeholders, whether it's from the end customer, employees, shareholders, the environment. When we develop and manufacture our products and specifically design them, we always keep all the stockholders in mind. We want to make sure we're protecting the environment, that if we can use green energy, we try to entail that as much, which means reducing the power, the power that's wasted in our product. If we can use better ways of manufacturing to keep the process slim or not have as much waste into the system. So pretty much it's take care of the environment, take care of people, and make sure everybody's application is successful. And that's in general what our philosophy here is at Sanyo Denki America. And if anybody hasn't heard of us before, we're actually a Japanese company, and we're about to be 100 years old in 2027, which is exciting. And some of the areas that we actually get involved in when it comes to applications is pretty much up to your imagination. We're in the medical field. We do industrial of all types. We can do things in home automation. We do a lot when it comes to server farms. When it comes to like power, anything that's controlling like power generation, and then anything that's for energy utilization. So a lot of green power applications. Brief little history, as I said, in 2027, we're actually going to be a 100-year-old company. So we're certainly not fly by night at all. We've been here for quite a while. And the nice thing about Sanyo Denki is that we have not been bought by anybody and we haven't had to buy anybody to get our technology. It's all homegrown. It's been designed by us from day one. We actually got our start right around World War II with making a generation like portable generators, hand generators for the war. And it just kind of spread out from there. And as I said, we started small almost 100 years ago, and we've got an incredible array of products now, almost 100 years later, through our three divisions. We've got the SAN Ace, which is our cooling product. We've got SAN Ups, which is our backup product for power backup. And then we also got SAN Motion, which is the motion control product, which is what I'm going to focus on today, and where the CODESYS is going to come into play. And we manufacture exclusively in two regions of the world. We manufacture in Japan, and we also manufacture in the Philippines. Whether you get it manufactured in Japan or the Philippines, you get the same quality standards, same engineering, same detail. So whether you get it from Japan or the Philippines, you get identical product. And the part that I would like to focus on, and specifically where I focus on, is the SAN motion aspect of our business, and that's anything to create motion. And the one thing I like about Sanyo Denki is that we're one of the few players on the world stage that we have product from A to Z. And what I mean by that is we don't just specialize in one specific technology for motion. We have the complete spectrum of technology. And what I mean by that is that we have servo motors of all sizes. AC servos. We actually manufacture motors that are as small to fit in the palm of your hand to ones that'll take up the desk that you're sitting at. They're really big motors. We make DC servo motors still, which have brushes in them, which are great for CMM machines. We make linear motors. We make the components so you can put linear motor systems together. We have stepping motors of all types and flavors. And most importantly, what we're going to talk about today is that we have the motion controller side. We have a couple of different flavors of motion controllers, specifically 3 different types, and that's where our CODESYS comes in. And that's where I kind of like to hone in today's conversation and talk a little bit about that and some of the applications we generated for it. What was our challenge when we were as a motion control company? We were excellent at building amplifiers and motors, but our challenge was, what do we do with motion control? I remember back in the day when I was cutting my teeth out of college on motion control, every vendor had a different flavor of how they did motion control. And it was always a challenge when I worked with a system integrator that you always had to learn a new product. Every manufacturer had a little bit different way of doing it. And boy, you could certainly spend some learning curve time to learn a new product. But thankfully, that's where CODESYS comes in. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what our challenges were when we came up with the motion control product. Here is where we're excellent at is building amplifiers and then building motors. The part I want to talk about is just right above, right here in the orangish yellow color. I want to talk about our motion controller and how we approach the design of a controller to use CODESYS. Here are some of the things we looked at when it comes to what do we want when we build a motion controller? Well, we are a world-class manufacturer of the stepper servo amplifiers and motors, so we do that all day long. That's our bread and butter. We are very good at that. But what we wanted to do is look at how has motion control evolved over the last 20, 25 years. Well, one way that it's evolved that we took a look at is it needs to be flexible. Flexibility seems to be the name of the game. Codes get updated in the field. It could be on a weekly basis on a production line. It could be an hourly basis. We were reviewing product. Did we want to write our own code or do we want to use something that's already been pre-written and has a very excellent track record to it? And that's when IEC 61131 started to come on the world stage, and CODESYS meets that requirement. That makes it nice and easy as a platform for engineers and programmers alike. They have a set standard on how they can actually program the device, in this case, our motion controllers. It had to be scalable because applications that we deal with can deal with one servo motor or one stepper motor. We can go up to ones that have 64 axes of motion on it. So it had to be scalable, whatever platform we used. Just as important is we needed to have EtherCAT compatibility because the way we go from our motion controller to our servo amplifiers or stepper amplifiers is we use the open source EtherCAT protocol. And we use EtherCAT because it's pretty much real-time deterministic, super fast. And all you have to do is daisy chain an Ethernet cable between our drives, one in, one out, one in, one out. We don't have to do any kind of cables that have 20, 30 wires in it. It's a simple Ethernet cable. And because you never know what's going to happen in the next 6 months to a year to 6 years, it needed to have expansion of features and benefits. So whatever we may have come out with originally, we had to have the opportunity to be able to add even more features to it in the future. And that's where the expandability come in. So that's what we were looking for. And now I'd like to answer, why did we go with CODESYS? Well, a couple of reasons we went with CODESYS is they are highly recognized in the automation and motion control worlds. The majority of engineers and programmers that I talk to and clients when I'm out in the field, they're quite familiar with CODESYS. CODESYS meets that 61131 standard, which is good because then we got the framework. We can use the different styles of programming like function blocks and statement lists and structured text. It's low entry to learning the product, where I was talking about a couple minutes ago about vendor A, B, and C all had their own version of a software that they came up with. Now, engineers don't have to work as hard to actually learn our product or anybody else's product that uses CODESYS. CODESYS has wonderful support from our end and also from the CODESYS team, and it's highly customizable, which is great. And visualization. So if you want to do a soft type HMI, that CODESYS has it built in, and we utilize that as well in our SAN Motion C product. Now for the fun stuff. I'd like to actually share a couple of applications that we built as demos for actually the Automate trade show here recently in Detroit. And I'm showcasing these specifically as demos because a lot of the projects we get involved in are OEM type projects that we're not allowed to discuss because there's a lot of proprietary information on it. I would love to actually share some of those applications, but just can't do that. So I'm going to show two different demos that we did at Automate. One really large one, and then one kind of a smaller one, just to give you a flavor on how we can go from large to small. So I want to share a couple of details with that, and that'll be the next couple of slides. This is the one that probably got the most attention for us. This is where it's our lab demo. It's an in vitro test. It's actually 14 axes of servo motors, and we're actually running off one controller. So we have our S500 controller at the bottom, and then we have 14 drives stacked to the right of it. And the yellow cable is that Ethernet cable I was telling you about that we just go between all the drives with. That's EtherCAT. And what we actually did in this demo is we actually built a couple different robotic arms to show how we can do the different kinematics inside of CODESYS with our motion control code. On the left here, we've got a 6-axis articulated robot arm. In the middle part, we have a SCARA robot that's 4-axis, and that SCARA robot is actually on a linear motor rail, as you'll see when I play the video. We had a rotary axis that was actually rotating some test tubes, and then we have a conveyor in the front, and we had a conveyor in the back that has servo motors on there, and those guys were geared together, so we got test tubes where they needed to be so the robots could pick in place. And we actually had a teach pendant here. So that whole assembly has 14 axes and proudly powered by CODESYS on our motion controller. Going to go ahead and play the video here for you. That whole demo, that was completely manufactured by us in Japan. Those robots are not purchased from anybody. That's actually ones that we built ourselves. And actually, if I could have sold robots at the show, people would have bought them off of us, but that was certainly completely built by us. I'll run that one more time. But that's just showcasing how we have the kinematics built into our motion controller via CODESYS. And as where we were picking up different color test tubes there, we had the red test tubes and the blue test tubes. Are sorting them by color. There's handshaking of all types going on with the SCARA robot and articulated robot, and those two indexing conveyors. And we also have the rotary there where it's putting the test tubes in front of a color sensor. So that's a fun run right there. And why it caught a lot of attention at the show is there's a lot of applications that we get involved with specifically for the medical field and a lot of automated lab equipment. It seems that that is one of the fields that we're seeing more and more people get involved with is just automation of any type of lab testing, whether it's, any kind of fluid sample, it could be on blood, it could be, testing cancer cells. It's almost an unlimited field these days. And I've noticed that with an aging population, especially here in the United States, the medical applications are definitely starting to increase exponentially. Here, I'm going to go over just a couple of the details on what did we utilize to actually get this to work with CODESYS. We had the 14 axes total on that one S500 controller, and that same controller can actually go up to 64 axes of motion. So we were not making that thing work too hard at the trade show. So we could have done 64. 6 of those are on that articulated robot that we saw on the left-hand side of the demo. 4 of them were for that SCARA robot on the right side. We had 2 axes on the conveyor and 1 linear motor axis and then 1 rotary table axis. And here on the right side, here's the kinematics that are built into that SAN Motion S500 controller. We can do the Cartesian robot, typical XY or XYZs. We have SCARA robot control that's built in. You saw that in the demo. We can do Delta robots. Those are fun ones, usually in the food application area. Palletizing robots, that's not a problem as well. That's where we're going to get into some bigger servo motors usually. And then 6-axis articulated robot, and that's what you saw on the left-hand side of our demo. And those kinematics are all built into that controller, and they're all programmed via CODESYS. Some of the areas that were supported around CODESYS is everything with our drives. That was EtherCAT communications. That was a yellow cable, so we just ran Ethernet between all the drives. We had a teach pendant. That we had talking to it in case we wanted to readjust any of the positions at the show. And then higher level up, we can talk different protocols like HTTP and others if you want to bring that data to the outside world, specifically up to the cloud. So this was a fun one. It has a lot of practical applications to it, and we showed definitely different types of coordinated motion and simple motion. And certainly you can take this application and what this demo shows and apply it to many, many applications in the real world. Some of the ways that we program that demo, and this is one of the questions I'll get asked by the engineering types, is because it is 61131 compliant. We usually go with 3 different flavors of how we like the program. We do structured text inside, we do function blocks, and we can do sequential function chart. That's the 3 most popular ways we control our motion inside of there. And with CODESYS, you can mix and match that all day long. You can do some parts in structured text, some parts in function block, and some parts in sequential function charts. So however you want to program it, up to your imagination. And the last demo I'd like to show is a smaller application. We originally had that 14-axis lab demo. I'm going to go to one that's a little bit smaller. This one's only going to have 5 axes, but it just shows a smaller controller of ours and a little bit different application type. This is our ball sorting demo. And what it did is we had 5 axes of servos here. And what it did is it actually looked at the color of ping pong balls inside this demo, and they actually got shot up through a tube. We looked at it with color sensors, and we could actually sort those balls individually by what color each one had. And what we did at the bottom of this demo is we have a smaller controller, our S100 and 200, and it was actually controlling 5 servo drives over that same EtherCAT interface. So a little smaller application, but we're doing similar programming style. EtherCAT out of the controller, off to our servo drives, and using CODESYS. Go ahead and play the video for you guys. The balls are coming up and down. They actually get blown up actually by one of the fans that we manufacture from the sister division of SANYO DENKI. They come down and then they actually get sorted by color. So we got 5 servos on here. They're all coordinated. We got these round discs. You'll see 4 of them with a different color on it. And each one of those is controlled by a servo motor. And then the 5th servo motor is actually the one in the middle that actually does the rotating as the balls come in to make sure they get sorted. So we have 5 axes there. Now, they weren't doing any kind of robot control, but they were certainly coordinated. And to give a couple of details about this application, this one had the 5 axes total. So one for the middle part where we did the rotary motion, and then the 4 discs that rotated to let the ball drop, and that was rotary motion as well. So they're coordinated, but not like a robot, but they're coordinated in the fact that it has a very specific timing in order to be able to drop that ball. Those discs had to turn real quick and come back to their starting point, and that was all coordinated. Here's our motion controller, a little close-up of it, and then we had our 5 servo drives to the right. And then there's our Ethernet cable with EtherCAT, and that's how everybody communicated. And right here is actually a fan from our sister division. That's what's actually moving the balls around to blow them up and down. Down below is just showing you how we use that EtherCAT in our smaller controller. That's our S100, S200. From that over EtherCAT, we can talk to our servo drives, and we can also talk to our stepper drives as well. So you're not limited. And we offer expansion I/O, all on EtherCAT, all controlled by CODESYS.